No.
And then when I finally get sick from COVID, that was a death-like experience.
Okay.
Oh, man. I sat here and just tried to get everybody to do it. I realized that you just can't.
The last few months had been oddly quiet in the Flagstaff Brown home. Their lives had been characterized by upheaval for years. Arguments on television, rumors of envy among the spouses, and unending conjecture from the outside world. But now that 3 of his marriages were irreparably broken, Kody told himself that life had at last achieved a tenuous sort of tranquility. The silence was a godsend, he assured himself. No more sidelong glares across dinner tables. No more conflicts reverberating down halls. Only Robyn, him, and their kids. The only person who stuck by his side was the favorite wife, as everyone vilely called her. Or so he thought. However, beneath that quiet, minor agitations had started to emerge. It all began with something so insignificant. Kody almost threw it away. A call regarding an odd withdrawal from the bank. He received a statement with unidentified missing figures. Banks made mistakes all the time, so he figured it was a clerical error. Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, TLC Flicks. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. He was too busy thinking about little differences to get caught up in them. But the murmurs increased in volume. One evening, Kody was sitting at his desk going,
Treated by my own family for trying to protect them.
Does not leave.
My heart is broken. Christine left because of this.
through letters and bills as the Arizona sun sank behind the red cliffs. A folded piece of mail caught his attention. Another declaration, another caution about large transactions. His heart pounded as he scowled. This time, the sums weren't insignificant. Untraceably, hundreds and thousands of dollars had disappeared. His fury grew as he rubbed his temples. This isn't logical, he whispered. Had he lost money on one of his investments? Had there been external fraud? He made an effort to comfort himself, but a knot started to grow within of him. Kody wasn't the only one who noticed something wasn't right. When neighbors noticed that Robyn's doorstep was receiving more parcels, they whispered to each other. Even though Mary was no longer living there, she was nonetheless listening everywhere and had heard that Robyn was going to banks on family business. Despite being far away, Christine and Janelle could feel the currents changing. But Robyn continued to be the epitome of composure. When Kody entered the room, she grinned, worried over the kids, and talked about everyday topics like the weather, family schedules, and grocery lists. But something was visible in her eyes. Like lightning behind storm clouds, there was a brief moment of diversion and a shadow of secrecy that came and passed. Although the family's dominion had always been shaky, Kody could now see cracks beginning to appear in previously invisible areas. The foundation beneath him was shifting, but he was unaware of it. And in the stillness of the desert night, when only the cicadas continued to hum their never-ending song, the murmurs in the darkness intensified, pushing him in the direction of a reality that would eventually demolish what he believed to be true about trust, love, and devotion. As though the desert itself were holding its breath, the night was unnaturally quiet. With his laptop shining in the dark room, Kody sat by himself at the long dining table. His mind was restless. Even though the rest of the house was quiet, Robyn and the kids were already asleep. Stacks of envelopes and bank statements closed up on him like walls. His fingers quivering slightly, he shuffled through them, comparing balances, dates, and figures with growing impatience. There was a problem. For months, something had been amiss. Kody took great satisfaction in managing his finances carefully. He was always keeping track of what came in, what went out, and what each family needed because he had been managing several families for years. He had planned, he had calculated, he had sacrificed. He believed he was aware of every penny's location. Now, however, fear seeped deep into his chest as he looked at the figures in front of him. There was a pattern to the withdrawals. They were intentional. Clear, accurate transfers that once went unnoticed but have now become bolder, bigger, and unavoidable. Tens of thousands had replaced the thousands. The tens had grown to hundreds. Then he saw the harsh, unyielding numbers on the screen gazing back at him. More than $1 million had been lost. His heart pounded. This isn't possible. This must be an error. He followed the money like breadcrumbs and clicked into the digital trail. The signature was the same for every transfer. It pointed to the same name in every account it landed in, the name he didn't anticipate. Robyn. He was momentarily unable to breathe. The shadows surrounding him twisted and stretched as if to mock his incredulity, and the room appeared to tilt. Robyn. The spouse he had fought for in every conflict, the one for whom he had split his family, the unquestionably faithful companion. All along, she had been embezzling the money, like a spider constructing its web while he was asleep, quietly and carefully. The sound of Kody slamming the laptop closed reverberated throughout the deserted house. Fury and shame fought for control as he buried his face in his hands. He was overcome with memories of Robyn's gentle comforts, her persistent entreaties that the other spouses misinterpreted her, and the way she held on to him while his world with Mary, Janelle, and Christine fell apart. Was everything a front? As the reality dawned on him, his chest heaved. The money wasn't the only factor. The sacrifices he had made for her, the love, the trust, it was all of it. In addition to stealing from his funds, she had also taken away his every remaining hope for his broken family. In the quiet of his discovery, the rhythmic sound of the cicadas outside continued to drone on. Kody stalked the room like a man in possession as he slowly got up, his chair scraping the floor. In order to get answers and to let go the storm that was rising inside of him, he wanted to wake Robyn. However, he didn't. Not quite yet. Instead, the fire in his eyes caused the stars above to become blurry as he stood at the window and gazed out into the desert night. He was convinced of one thing. The lady he believed he could trust had deceived him, and the price was higher than he could have ever guessed. Kody never fell asleep that night. His head caught in a maelstrom of incredulity and rage. He paced the floor of the living room till morning. The statistics kept coming back to him every time he closed his eyes. The transfers, the trail, the incriminating evidence that his most trusted wife had embezzled over $1 million. Kody felt empty when dawn light finally filtered through the blinds. Once in charge of a large family of women and kids, the man now stood by himself, holding on to the ragged remnants of loyalty that had escaped his grasp. Robyn came out of the bedroom, her voice quiet with morning sleepiness, her hair still disheveled. She forced a grin as she entered the kitchen and remarked, "Kody, you're up early." As if nothing were wrong, she reached into a cupboard, grabbed a mug, and poured coffee. Kody's chest constricted as he closely observed her. How does she manage to act so normal? Is she even aware of what I discovered? At last he spoke, his tone calm but fierce. "Where's the money, Robyn?" Halfway to her lips, the mug froze. She scowled in pretend bewilderment. "How much money?" Kody yelled, "The $1 million," and slammed his hand down on the table. "Avoid playing tricks on me." I looked at the accounts. I observed the transfers. Everything points to you. Her mask dropped for the first time. Her face briefly flashed with panic, but she swiftly covered it with a mask of outrage. "How in the world did you think that, Kody? Me? Taking something from you? From us?" Her hand shook and she put down the drink. Kody, though, had had enough. He was aware of the distinction between guilt and innocence, and terror rather than shock was what gazed back at him. His voice broke with unfiltered emotion as he uttered, "You were supposed to be the one I could trust. When everyone else turned against me, I was there for you. Mary was lost. Janelle was lost. Christine was lost. And I picked you through it all. And this," he waved wildly at the papers and statements that were all over the place, "is what you give me in exchange?" Robyn's eyes filled with tears, but Kody was no longer able to distinguish if they were genuine or a performance. In a barely discernible murmur, she said, "I did what I had to do." He felt his chest constrict like a vice. "You have to do what?" "You've ruined everything, Robyn. Are you aware of what this means? Not only for me, but also for the children, the family, and everything we created together." A dense and oppressive silence descended between them. Kody's hands were shaking as he turned away. In addition to the theft, the breakdown of the tenuous trust he had held onto made him feel more betrayed than ever. The last straw had fallen, but the family had already begun to fall apart. Something Kody learned that morning was more painful than any wound. Your enemies don't betray you. It originates from the people you allow to be the closest to you. The days following the altercation were a haze of stress and quiet. Although there were many implicit charges plastered on the walls of the house, Kody hardly spoke to Robyn. Every time he pressed too hard, she retreated inside herself, switching between cold glares of wrath and pitiful cries for forgiveness. Kody, however, had already made up his mind. Love had been turned into treachery, trust had been broken, and the amount of money that had vanished was too large to be covered up with justifications. He signed the papers with trembling hands, but there was no going back. His wife, Robyn Brown, who was once his faithful friend but is now his enemy, was the target of his lawsuit. The word spread like wildfire across the desert to the tabloids. Robyn is sued by Kody Brown for million-dollar theft. A financial scandal implodes the sister wives' family. When either of them went outside, paparazzi swarmed to Flagstaff, their cameras flashing. Reporters gathered on the steps of the courthouse, yelling questions that were as sharp as knives. Did Robyn actually embezzle the funds? Kody, is Sister Wives coming to an end? Do you refute the charges, Robyn? The emotions within the family circle were as explosive. I warned him years ago. Mary, who had long suffered the agony of being ignored, whispered resentfully to a friend. He refused to pay attention. Free of the marriage but bound by history to the drama, Christine shook her head laughingly. To be honest, I'm not shocked. Robyn's desire for control was constant. When she finally understood, look what transpired. When Janelle heard the news, she let out a big sigh, exhausted by it all. It's simply depressing. For everybody, particularly the children. The litigation turned into a farce. The public's fascination enlarged every document, every detail that was leaked, and every rumor that was uttered. Online, Sister Wives fans analyzed every aspect of the case, with some praising Robyn as the misunderstood victim and others denouncing her as the mastermind behind the collapse of the entire Brown enterprise. Even Kody struggled with mixed feelings. The greatest flame was anger, but behind it was humiliation. It was not just a personal hurt to acknowledge that his most trusted wife had deceived him, it was also a public one. He had been justifying his decisions on TV for years, claiming that his marriage to Robyn was evidence of his family values. That vision was now displayed before the world in ruins. Kody prepared himself for the court date. He would confront Robyn as an accuser rather than a husband. Standing across the aisle, armed with attorneys and tears, was the woman he had once promised eternity. Even much he detested the idea, Kody was aware of one thing above all else. Money was no longer the only factor in this situation. The final battle in a conflict that had already destroyed everything he believed he had built was about pride, power, and pride. There has never been so much mayhem at the Flagstaff courts. Reporters were jostling each other for the best shot as cameras flashed by the time Kody got there. Ignoring the cries, he pushed through the crowd with his jaw fixed and his blonde curls cascading across his forehead. Robyn showed up a few moments later. She moved briskly past the crowd of microphones, wearing a black outfit and sunglasses to protect her eyes. Her tense shoulders, however, showed worry, which her lips would not acknowledge. The tension in the courtroom was intolerable. Journalists, interested residents, and even some ardent Sister Wives fans who had set up camp outside for days to watch the show were crammed onto the benches. With his gavel smashing on the wood, the judge stepped inside. Everyone gets up. With his attorneys loaded with files and huge binders of proof, Kody took a seat at the plaintiff's table. Robyn sank into her chair across from him, her lawyers at her sides. They looked at each other for the first time since they had met. It was rivals' eyes, not those of a husband and wife. Betrayal was depicted in the opening statements. More than $1 million was taken from Mr. Brown's accounts, Kody's lawyer revealed. The defendant, Mrs. Robyn Brown, is clearly identified by the evidence trail, which includes bank transfers, falsified signatures, and covert withdrawals. There were whispers throughout the courtroom. Robyn's lawyer hurried to his feet, his voice piercing with outrage. My client refutes these baseless charges. This is just a resentful man using his marital issues as a stage for a legal circus. However, the air became thicker as the proof was revealed. Transaction logs, Robyn's handwritten signatures, and recordings of calls she had made under the pretense of family business were displayed on screens. The guilt piled up higher and higher as each piece fell like a stone. Kody watched as all the secrets were revealed. His fists tightened. Beneath his burning embarrassment, there was a somber sense of relief. The truth was no longer just his burden. It was now visible to everyone. On the other hand, Robyn performed her role flawlessly. Her voice cracked as she asserted her innocence while dabbing at her eyes with tissues. "I'd never turn on my family. I adore Kody. I adore our kids. All of this is a horrible miscommunication." She was believed by several in the gallery. Some people shook their heads, believing it to be merely a show, but the judge remained unconvinced. His face was grim as he leaned forward. "Mrs. Brown, the evidence is unmistakable. Until the opposite is demonstrated, these charges remain valid." Reporters scrawled frantically as the courtroom erupted in whispers. For the first time in weeks, Kody felt a sense of validation as he let out a leisurely sigh, the storm still roaring in his chest. Robyn got up as the day's practice came to a conclusion, her chin up but her face pallid. Her eyes were chilly and unreadable as she turned away after giving Kody one more look. The scales were shifting, but the fight was far from done. Only one of them would emerge victorious from the courtroom, which had turned to become their new battlefield. As if the desert sky itself could feel the weight of what was about to happen, the trial's last day dawned gloomy and somber. Hours before court hearings started, large crowds gathered outside the courthouse to see history being made. The tension was intense, permeating every hushed exchange and every camera aimed at the courthouse steps. It wasn't just in the air. The courtroom was filled with eagerness inside. With his eyes fixated on the bench and his jaw clenched, Kody sat still at the plaintiff's table. He hadn't dared to dream of justice, but he had prepared himself for loss, heartache, and disgrace. A few moments later, Robyn came in, her dark suit immaculate, her face meticulously carved into grief. Despite her lawyer's desperate whispers in her ear, she refused to look at Kody and continued to look straight ahead. The room became silent as the judge's gavel slammed. The evidence that was submitted, including testimony, bank statements, transfer records, and handwriting analysis, has been examined by this court. The burden of evidence is too great. Robyn's fingers held onto the defense table's edge. It made her knuckles white. The judge spoke in a firm, ruthless tone. As a result, this court has decided that Mrs. Robyn Brown is guilty of both fraud and theft. She is going to be arrested right away. It exploded like an explosion of words. The gallery echoed with gasps. Reporters flocked to their phones, quickly publishing headlines around the world. Robyn's expression fell. The mask broke fully for the first time. She shook her head angrily, tears running down her cheeks. "This isn't fair, no. Please, Kody," she screamed, her voice cracking, looking for any sign of mercy on his face. Kody, however, did not move. His stone-hard eyes showed no sympathy. He had lost it due to too many nights of betrayal and too many scars concealed by her lies. A pair of bailiffs appeared. As they connected her wrists, the mechanical snap of handcuffs reverberated across the quiet room. The sound was irrefutable, icy, and definitive. As she was raised to her feet, Robyn moaned, her shoulders quivering under the weight of everyone's attention. The bound hands, the tear-streaked face, and the way her body appeared to fold under humiliation were all captured on tape. Robyn Brown was no longer the favored wife or the polished reality TV star in that moment. She was displayed in front of the world as a criminal. Kody sighed, not in victory but in exhausted resignation. Yes, he had won the case, but it didn't feel like a real win. With his family in ruins, what use was it to get his money back? Once resonating with the echoes of his family's dreams, the courtroom now echoed with the clang of betrayal's repercussions. Robyn turned back one last time as she was carried away. Her teary eyes met Kody's, brimming with something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Desperation, rage, or maybe a secret she would never share. The family and the rest of the world were left in startled stillness as the doors closed behind her. Long after the courthouse had emptied, Kody could still hear the gavel's reverberation. Robyn had been handcuffed and taken away, but the real storm was just getting started. The family itself was the rubble left behind if the courts was a battleground. The kids' inquiries at home were like arrows. Some were old enough to see terror in their father's eyes, but too small to comprehend the seriousness of arrest. With a tiny, tremulous voice, one of Robyn's girls said, "Daddy, when is Mom coming home?" Drying his throat, Kody swallowed hard. Unable to look her in the eyes, he muttered, I don't know." It was more difficult to reassure the older kids. On their phones, they saw the news headlines and pictures of their mother sobbing and imprisoned. Anger simmered. Anger replaced confusion. Some muttered that perhaps she wasn't innocent after all, while others accused Kody of ruining her. The wave also reached the other members of the Brown family outside of Robyn's boundaries. When Mary read the headline, she was sitting by herself, her face shadowed by the light from her laptop. With a sour laugh, she gently closed the screen. "I informed him. Years ago, I warned him that she would be the last of him." Beneath the contentment, though, was sadness, for history bound them together, no matter how broken they had grown. Christine, who is no longer married but will always be associated with its legacy, folded her arms as she watched the video. She shook her head, a sneer tugging at her lips. "He abandoned all of us for her. Now have a look. Karma always finds its way back." Even still, after years of rivalry, she felt sympathy for the kids and meshed in the chaos. Janelle replied with tired resignation, pragmatic as ever. She told a close friend, "This is tragic. Sides are no longer important. It concerns the total disintegration of the family." The fallout was everywhere in a matter of days. In the aisles of the grocery store, neighbors whispered. Online, fans engaged in a fierce battle between Team Robyn and Team Kody, with each post being analyzed like a piece of scripture. In the hopes of more collapses, more tears, and more soundbites, paparazzi flocked to the Brown residences. And Kody carried the burden of his illusory triumph throughout it all. He had established Robyn's culpability. His stolen fortune was back in his possession. But instead of victory, he experienced fatigue, embarrassment, and the oppressive realization that he had lost more than money. The name of the Brown family, which had formerly stood for unorthodox solidarity, was now broken. Greed and treachery had blown the sister wives' empire to dust. Robyn wept silently in her cell, but no one could tell if she was crying for herself, her family, or her freedom. News organizations from London to Sydney, from Flagstaff to New York, displayed her tear-streaked mugshot on their screens. Podcasts issued special emergency episodes to reveal every detail. Late-night comedians cracked jokes, and morning shows analyzed the trial. Sister Wives, a window into the peculiar and frequently chaotic lives of the Browns, had been a guilty pleasure for years. Now, though, the world was unable to turn away from what had become a true crime saga. The comment sections became battlefields. Robyn was vehemently defended by several admirers who said she was set up. Since she was the only one who stayed, Kody is resentful. She is defending her children. All of this is biased against her. Others, on the other hand, celebrated her demise. She ruined the family from the inside out. She was finally apprehended. She took everything that Kody had given her. Unbelievably, film teams rushed in, keen to document the mayhem. Bidding wars for the rights to the revealing special sister wives, Betrayal and Bloodlines, were revealed by streaming services. While journalists combed through financial documents in an attempt to uncover even more secrets about the Browns, producers drooled over the ratings bonanza. Celebrities even voiced their opinions. "You can't make this stuff up. This is crazier than anything Nashville ever cooked up," a country music artist wrote on Twitter. Her audience gasped at every detail as a well-known talk show presenter spent an entire section discussing the issue. In the meantime, the Browns' neighbors in Flagstaff experienced the glare of unwelcome attention. As if the residences themselves were a murder scene, tourists started driving past and taking pictures. Companies around the courthouse profited by selling t-shirts with the slogans Team Kody and Free Robyn on one side. Kody kept his head down through it all. Although he had prevailed in court, he was by no means the winner in the court of public opinion. He was the wronged husband who had finally defended himself, according to some. Others saw him as the one who ruined his family's reputation by exposing filthy, unclean laundry on national television. Behind icy bars, Robyn became a martyr and a villain. Even though scandal had hardened her once soft, polished countenance that was framed by meticulous makeup, she was nevertheless more well-known than ever. Every tear she has ever shed was reassessed as either tragedy or manipulation. Old program clips were constantly rerun, and interviews with her estranged relatives reappeared. Resilience was historically associated with the Brown family name. The family that dared to show their lives to the public were the forerunners of contemporary polygamy on television. The image they marketed was one of love, faith, and solidarity. Those words, however, were now but ashes. The delusion was totally destroyed after Robyn was taken into custody. By discreetly stopping reruns and removing promotional materials, the network separated itself. Overnight, sponsors vanished because they didn't want to be linked to controversy and fraud. In just a few weeks, the profitable empire that had consisted of books, specials, and appearances vanished. Every vacant room served as a reminder of what Kody had lost as he silently strolled through his once bustling house. The sounds of children's anarchy, laughter, and even furious disagreements are no longer there. The only thing weighing him down now, like a thick mist, was the weight of betrayal. He had sacrificed 3 other spouses to make Robyn his forever, fought for this marriage, and stood up for her against any criticism. And she had taken it all in the end. Each of the other women processed the collapse in their own manner while watching from a distance. Mary was vindicated, but she still harbored resentment. One evening, while looking at old family pictures, she muttered, "He threw me aside for her." And see what he lost as a result. When reporters asked Christine, who had been out of the chaos for a long time, for a remark, she shook her head. She firmly declared, "That chapter of my life is over." However, when she was by herself, she confided in acquaintances that she felt a peculiar mixture of sadness and grim satisfaction as she watched the family fall apart. Janelle bore the brunt of her sorrow. Always the mediator, she wept for the children, harmless beings caught in the ruins of choices they never made, rather than for Kody or Robyn. The world ate up every scrap of the Browns' demise outside of their group. Polygamy in ruins, screamed the tabloids' covers. Podcasters analyzed previous Sister Wives episodes as if they were prophecies, citing Robyn's deception in every brawl, smile, and suspicious look. However, Kody's greatest setback was not the fall of fame and money or the ridicule of the world. It was the heartbreaking knowledge that his dream, the dream of a family bound together by love and faith, was no longer alive. He had lost everything he had staked on a single wife. Previously a symbol of unorthodox solidarity, the Brown Empire was now merely a warning. There was scandal where there had been hope. Betrayal occurred when trust had existed. And there was only ruin where there had been family. Sitting by himself at his table, Kody gazed at the vacant chair across from him, where Robyn had previously sat, grinning sweetly and acting as though she could save him. Louder than any debate, heavier than any loss, the stillness closed up on him. Storm clouds, the kind that promised rain but never did, just the dense, suffocating air of expectation, were prevalent on Robyn's transfer day. Cameras flocked to the courthouse steps once more, but this time the scene seemed more certain. It was the final act of the drama that had enthralled the world. Robyn was standing in shackles inside, her hands tied, her hair pulled back to show off the acerbic features of her face. The tears of the past were gone. No trembling or begging was heard. There was, if anything, defiance now, as if a queen had been deprived of her throne but was resolved to retain her crown in spirit. Nobody had anticipated Kody's arrival. At the back of the room, he sat quietly, his posture rigid, his gaze focused on the woman who had once been everything to him. Something inside of him demanded to be put to rest, even though the kids had pleaded with him not to go and not to reopen wounds. Robyn turned her head as the bailiff started to lead her out, and their eyes briefly met. It was no longer love. Not even hate was involved. Something far more intricate was involved. As though she had secrets he would never discover, there was a mix of grief and rage in her eyes. He had the exhausted resignation of a man who had lost too much and struggled too long. Neither one said anything. They were not obliged to. That one look conveyed everything that words could not. Remorse, resentment, unanswerable questions, and the ultimate recognition that what they had created together was lost forever. Robyn was led through the doors, the shackles rattling. She was gone. Gone from the world he had once tried so hard to keep together, and out of his life as the heavy bang reverberated down the corridor. After a while, Kody sat there looking at the empty doorway. He reflected on the betrayals, the court cases, and the $1 million. He reflected on the empire that had fallen into ruins, the wives that had departed, and the family he had lost. And Kody Brown felt completely alone for the first time in his life. The Globe swallowed the controversy for the final time as the cameras flashed outside and the headlines screamed. However, there was only silence, the deep, deafening silence of a man who had nothing left but the wreckage of his own decisions inside Kody's chest. Robyn and Kody's story ended with a final look that would haunt them both for the rest of their lives, rather than with forgiveness or reconciliation. Let us know in your comments. And stay tuned by subscribing our channel to get more updates like this. Thanks everyone.